We thank you for coming and spending time with us. My name's Bob Furness. I lead the Service Cloud practice for Blue Wolf, an IBM company. We are the company within IBM that delivers Salesforce solutions to customers like you. And we're very happy you chose us out of the 2,200 sessions today. Hopefully we can add some value to your life and to your contact center. So with me today, I have Bob McDonald, who is the Vice President of Transformation and Training Globalization at IBM. Glad to have you here. We have Scott McDonald, who's the Director of Client Support and IT. And we have Lily Reiseball, who is the Cognitive Support Platform Offering Manager. To tell you what these folks do, in the world of contact centers, if you live in that world today, we talk a lot about customer journeys and customer transformation and customer experience and agent experience and agent transformation. We have all these words that we talk about. And this team has actually been involved in a transformation over the last 2.5 years that has made all of those words come true in the organization of IBM. So if you are not sure what session you're in, we're going to share with you today the story of how IBM Support has used Salesforce and Watson to totally transform their organization. In fact, I've been around contact centers for 30 too many years. In my mind, this is one of the most transformational contact centers in the world today because of the way that they're using AI to make things come alive in their contact center, both to support their agents and to support their customers. So I'm happy to be on the stage with these four people who have made that come true in their organization, along with the tons of other people within their organization and the Blue Wolf teams that made this true. So as we stand here today, there's these moments in time that have happened in the contact center space. You can see them on the screen, the things like when the IVR was going to replace all of the contact centers. If you've been around for a while, remember when they said, oh, well, IVRs are going to replace contact centers. Well, that didn't happen. They scraped some of the calls off and put them in the IVR. But then there was that moment, for instance, the first time that anybody in your contact center sent an email for the first time. I remember when that happened and how afraid we were of that channel because we were sending things in black and white. But yet today, that's just another channel that's in the contact center. In fact, it's probably the second most likely channel that you have in your contact centers, and we just take it for granted. And then things like social media came along and customers owned our brand more than they ever have in the past. And all of a sudden, a bad experience could turn into 1 million tweets. And so the concept of how are we going to manage in the contact center world around that, came into reality. And then omni-channel, which we're all still chasing from a perspective of what does it mean? What does it mean to have 10 or 12 channels come into your contact centers? How do we deal with that? What's the process? What's the technology that's going to allow us to have agents that handle 4 and 5 and 6 channels at the same time? And of course, we know Salesforce has designed that for us. And then the moment where I find us today is in this moment of AI. And what does it really mean? What is it really going to do in the contact center? And I think you're going to hear today that it's probably transformed the agent's experience as much as it's transformed the customer's experience. It's probably done as much at IBM for the internal interactions as it has directly to the customer, although the customer has the ability, using Salesforce and AI, to what Bob calls his digital front door into their contact centers. So that's what we're here to talk about, that this next moment in time that's existing in the world that we live around contact centers. And at Blue Wolf, how we come to market with this is, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but how we come to market is around what we call the maturity curve and the ability to help customers where they are. And when we met IBM, we took notice of where they were in their journey and how can we as a partner go along beside them. And so while you may be here today to hear about the AI side, I will find sometimes that we have customers. Had a customer recently, we were there to talk about AI, and about halfway through the session, he called time out and said, I have 400 fields in my case management object. I need you to fix that before you try to sell me AI, which is the reality of what happens in a foundational maturity curve. Is we often find, so if you're here today to learn about the art of the possible, we understand that sometimes you have to go back in time, redo the foundation or set up the foundation so that you can move forward. So I'm really pleased to be on stage with these guys who have made that come live at IBM. And I'm anxious to introduce to you Scott McDonald, who's going to take over and share with the story along with Lily.
Thanks, Bob. Good afternoon, everybody. This is our third time coming out to Dreamforce to share our story. We talk about it in terms of our client support transformation, as well as our cognitive support platform. That is really the key underpinning of our transformation. And we're still very excited about the story, and we hope you guys aren't tired of listening to us about it. Lily and I have the pleasure of sharing some of the really terrific things that our global team has accomplished. And we really and truly have an incredibly strong team that does some amazing things for us. And I'm not just saying that because they're all scattered here in the front row. But before we move on, most of you know a whole lot about IBM, but I wanted to share a few key facts with you. We're ranked #1 in AI for business with over 20,000 IBM Watson engagements around the world, spanning a wide variety of industries. We're the global leader in cognitive solutions and enterprise cloud platform. We have clients in 170 countries. We have over 7,000 products across software, hardware, and as a service. Bob already teed up Blue Wolf for us, but Blue Wolf is, I think, the longest standing strategic partner that Salesforce has today. And they have the most Salesforce certified talent in the world. And what we've done with Blue Wolf has been a really important collaboration to build our IBM cognitive support platform. So as Bob mentioned, the world of support continues to evolve. As consumers, we've grown accustomed to a user experience that is personalized, that's seamless. And when we come into the workplace, that's what our expectations are as well. So when we think about what we're doing, we need to make sure that we build an excellent experience for both our clients and our support agents that let them achieve the desired outcomes. We've taken an outside-in approach, and this has been very important. This is what's been driving our entire client support transformation. We've gotten input from a lot of different sources, but at the top of the list has been client feedback. And that's been a key guiding principle for us. In terms of when we think about what we do with our experience, our clients expect 80% of the experience to be consistent as they work across all the products and services that IBM has to offer. But we also recognize that 20% of the experience, our clients recognize this, that 20% of the experience is going to be more personalized due to the complexity of our portfolio and their unique needs. So many of us have been talking about the future of support for a long time now. And with the combination of IBM Watson for AI and Service Cloud for our platform, we have what we need to deliver an excellent client and support agent experience today. And that's what we're so excited about. This has been our journey started in 2017, so it's relatively new, but we were really building up to it for many years, thinking about what will we do to transform support at IBM. We've built the cognitive platform, placing the client and the support agent at the center of everything we do. Those are really our key target audiences here. And we know that they work hand in hand. We start with the client. We make sure we do what's right from a client experience in our client community. But we know that if we don't enable our support agents adequately, they're not going to be able to satisfy our client needs. We leverage an omni-channel approach so we can interact with our clients in the way that they're most comfortable. We've woven Watson into everything we do from on both the client community side and the agent console side. I'm not going to get into the details because Lily's going to do a fantastic job when we get to that. Next slide, Lily. So when we think about our client support transformation, the top priority for us was client experience. And we knew this would lead to, if we focused on that and did that right, we knew it would lead to increased revenue and operational efficiencies. So by focusing on client first, the other things tend to take care of themselves. And we've seen some really good outcomes to date. Since 2017, we've seen an 11-point increase in Net Promoter Score. We've generated about $100 million of incremental revenue between 2018 and 2019. And in terms of cumulative savings, we've generated over $300 million of cumulative savings since 2017. So the proof points are there for us, and it just motivates us to do more faster, so that we can generate even more business outcomes. Oh, another important point. From an application portfolio management perspective, one of the underlying operational efficiencies are, how can we simplify and consolidate our client support application portfolio? So when we started our journey, we had about 300 legacy applications in our client support portfolio. Well, by chipping away at it steadily as we replace capabilities, legacy capabilities in the platform, we've been making steady progress. And by the end of 2020, we'll have reduced our application portfolio by over 60%. And this generates, for those of you that are IT practitioners, you know all the benefits you get when you consolidate down to a fewer number of applications. It has a tremendous impact on cost of ownership. It really greatly improves your agility to deliver on new requirements because you're doing it on a central platform rather than many ticketing systems around the world. Okay, Lily. Next slide. So from a, oh, next one. Lily's trying to throw a curveball my way and see if I'm paying attention. She's really good that way. So here's a look at our cognitive support platform timeline. And there's a lot going on in this chart. It's a pretty good takeaway. But what you see along the top is the timeline for our key milestones and some of the statistics that went along with those milestones. Along the bottom is all the cool Watson integrations we've done along the way. Again, I'm not going to get into those details. Lily will cover them, and she's going to actually show you some of the cool ones as well. But when we think about how things worked for our timeline, we a couple of things that we did right out of the blocks. We didn't do an extended requirements gathering phase. And we've mentioned this at previous Dreamforces, and you guys probably think, those of you who have been in those attendance, probably think we're crazy. But we have a global team made up of IT and business people that really understand support, that are very well connected with their counterparts in the business units. So we didn't need to gather up a whole lot of requirements, and we didn't want to, right? We went with an industry-leading solution, and we decided we're going to use it out of the box to the extent possible, and we're going to use that to drive the transformation. And we knew, as we proceeded along our transformation, as we did each onboarding group, we knew we would encounter some product support teams that truly had unique requirements. And we would work through those and address those as they would arise. But we didn't let it bog down and weight down our progress. That's how we moved quick, and it's what we continue to do as we move along. So we signed our contract in February of 2017. By mid-year, we already had our cognitive support platform up and running in MVP capacity for a handful of products. So this wasn't a pilot. It wasn't sort of in a sandbox. It was up and running for real. We continued to move pretty quickly, and we ended 2017 with about 7,000 support agents on the platform. We also got into a rhythm of onboarding the next set of support agents and products every 2 weeks. So we had a long run of doing 2-week iterations, and each time we were migrating data and onboarding people. So it was a really rigorous pace. But because we kept it simple, it allowed us to do this. We also started on remote support, which at IBM is a lot easier to solve than hardware and field service. By the end of 2018, we had boarded 13,000 support agents, and 3,000 IBM products were supported from the platform. We continued in 2019. It's been a really busy year for us. At the end of this year, we'll have 18,000 support agents on the platform. We'll have coverage for 5,000 IBM products. Some of the really big things we did this year is we moved some mountains. Our IBM Z and I operating systems and middleware is one of our most challenging spaces because there's so many years of legacy there. And also, our largest clients around the world rely on these products and rely on the support we provide for these products for the mission-critical workload. So when we got to those, we tapped the brakes and we cranked up our OCM and we made sure that we did all the right preparations, both from a support agent perspective and a client perspective. So that wasn't the area we said, all right, let's go crazy fast. We said, let's tap the brakes and let's go a little bit more methodically. By doing that little bit of course correction, by doing that little bit of change up, we've been very successful with that deployment because we haven't missed a beat. We haven't taken a hit on a Net Promoter Score. And the feedback from our clients has really been very positive. So we're feeling pretty good about that. Along the way, for those of you that are into the classic versus Lightning, we did the Lightning console in the middle of this year and are fully on that and with good results. There were some lessons learned along that. We had very high expectations for the Lightning console. As it turns out, there were some growing pains. But we got through it and have it in place and are fully using that for our 18,000 support agents. I think the final point I wanted to make on this one was now remote hardware and field service. A big focus area for you. I'm going to give you more details on a follow-on chart, but there's some exciting things going on, particularly this week, that I'm going to share with you. Lily, could you do the next chart, please? So as we move forward, the innovation going forward. For us, it's going to be starting with remote hardware and field service. We've already dipped a toe into it, but this is at the core of our next wave of transformation. Because we're not just going out and saying, okay, listen, we've got 170 countries who all have country-specific business processes, country-specific terms and conditions, and everything under the sun that is very country-specific, and it's been building for probably up to 50 years in some cases. So what we're doing is we're bringing people onto a simplified global process, and that takes heavy lifting and hard work and lots of negotiation. So that's the next frontier for us. And we've got, I just want to check our stats here, but we've got to get out to 170 countries. The other thing about innovation for us going forward is it's going to be a ton of Watson and a ton of Einstein analytics. We have some of our Einstein analytics here, folks here. We have our Watson expertise here, and these people are rocking it out. When you see some of the things that are rolling off the presses, I think you'll be impressed. So to wrap up on my piece, our field service hardware, remote hardware, and field service timeline. The way we started this thing late in 2018, we delivered an MVP for a couple of countries that were kind of ready. They're countries that were willing to jump in the deep end with us, and they were isolated enough that we thought we could do a reasonable job. So we started out with Australia and New Zealand. We got it up and running, and we learned a lot from this. It wasn't a full end-to-end. We kept some of our front-end legacy stuff and really did a field service Lightning implementation. But what it did is it helped us learn about some of the challenges that we'll have as we reach out to countries. Everything from the, oh my God, we didn't know they did use vendors that way, or oh yeah, they're used to ordering parts in a very different way than our standard process. So things like that, and what it made us do is step back and then focus on what we need to do to scale up, to add capabilities that will allow us to go to subsequent countries, like 170 subsequent countries. So we've been very focused on building up core capabilities this year, enhancing the agent experience for sure, the field service experience, but also doing the heavy lifting with back-end integration, like for us, entitlement, verification, and parts management. So heavy-duty stuff when you think about trying to get the right people to the right place with the right parts to customers who are entitled to get that service. So certainly a lot going on there. The exciting news for us, actually that happened overnight, is we did our first deployment, end-to-end field service lightning deployment to 23 Southern African countries. And we're pretty excited about this because it really is the proof point of a full end-to-end solution. And a lot of the folks here are responsible for dealing with issues that arise, and just because they're able to sit here and listen in, I'd say we're doing pretty well so far. So we're really jazzed up. So 23 down and about 150 countries to go. Now, I'm going to hand it over to the star of the show. She's going to rock it out with some Einstein analytics and Watson.
Super, thank you, Scott. So one thing that became apparent as we rolled out Service Cloud to all of these users was that we really needed a single spot for all of our support metrics, for our team leads, our managers, our executives. And it turned out that Einstein Analytics was a great solution for us to be able to do that. So we had onboarded thousands of users. Everybody's getting used to the platform. Our managers are getting used to doing reports. And guess what? Several things happened. Number one, everybody's doing it just a little bit different. Number two, everybody's exporting files and passing them around. And number three is they had to use a number of different tools to get a full picture of how their business or their team was doing. And so our data and analytics team worked with our business units and their stakeholders to create a number of different dashboards to help us solve this in Einstein Analytics. And it was clear that we needed to not just transform our agents and their experience, as Scott had talked about, but also our managers and enable them through Einstein Analytics. So what you're seeing here is all the different data elements and metrics that we've incorporated into our Einstein Analytics dashboards. We've got our organizational data there. We've got our NPS surveys from Medallia there. We've got our KCS data there so that we understand how we're using our content. And we've got our platform data, right? Our case arrivals and case backlogs and time to resolution and all those different kinds of things. And what we've done with this is that we've developed a set of product insight dashboards so that managers, executives can take a look at how our products are performing. And we've got a set of manager insight dashboards so that our managers can take a look at how their team is performing. Our users love it, right? It's become the single place for all metrics. We now run operational reviews straight out of the dashboards, right? No more PowerPoints to pull together. Our users love the transparency of the metrics because everybody can see the same data. They love the consistency because everybody's measuring it the same way. And then our managers also love the fact that they can dive in deeper on some of those cases that might need their attention very easily through the dashboards, or they can have those meaningful conversations with their employees about their workload or some feedback to give to them on a particular case. So some really good experience for us with Einstein Analytics, and I'm going to show you some of our dashboards. I want to give a shout out to Sarah Newby and Lee Jacobson and Gary Burnett in the audience from our data and analytics team. If you have any Einstein Analytics questions towards the end, I'm sure they'll be happy to help Scott and I out. All right, so as IBM, as leaders in AI, one of the opportunities we really had was to leverage Watson to enable and accelerate our support transformation. And we've delivered on that opportunity. We've infused AI throughout the client experience and the support agent experience for better support outcomes. And as we looked at this, we kind of looked at it threefold. One is, how can we use AI to be more proactive about our support before that case is even opened? How can we help enable new self-serve channels for our clients through things like chatbots or robotic process automation? And then ultimately, how can we infuse AI throughout the life cycle of the case, at the right moments in the case, to help agents solve the case faster, to help get answers to our clients faster through that AI enabling those things? And one of the most recent things that we've done is that we've enabled some next best actions for our agents as they're working a case. And I want to show you a little bit about that. So some of you may be familiar with Einstein next best action, and that's what we're leveraging here. So Einstein next best action gives you like a framework or a rules engine to make targeted recommendations to the user, in our case, our agents, while they're working the case. And it's kind of like a little nudge to our agents. Hey, you should be looking at this information. Hey, you should be taking an action like this for this kind of case. And then we've put Watson together with that framework to deliver some deep insights that only Watson can do, to put those kinds of insight into the hands of our agents where they may not have been aware of those kinds of things before. So it's really a key new capability for our agents. And it's really kind of like an AI companion or a virtual mentor or buddy for our agents as they're working a case. Somebody standing over their shoulder saying, hey, this needs your attention. So let me take you through a demo of some of our next best action use cases and our Einstein analytics, just to bring some of these things to life. All right. So what you're looking at here is our service console. And as I was saying, next best action is that framework that surfaces next best actions for our agents under certain conditions. It's not always there. It has to be a very kind of surgical tool. And I want to show you 4 use cases. So as IBM, of course, we're a global company. We have clients all over the world. And sometimes our technical experts aren't in the same region or don't speak the same language as our client. But we want our technical experts to apply some of the best practices of communicating and working with those customers. So we have this really simple case, right? Here's a case that was opened in Japanese. Watson Language Translator detects that this case was opened in Japanese. It automatically translates it to English, and only then do we surface this action that says, hey, here's some best practices you can follow to work with Japanese clients. So if I follow this particular redirection to our playbook, I'll see some best practices. So we're spreading that knowledge of best practices and operationalizing best practices, right? Another case we have is that we found through our shadowing that our best agents, when they receive a case that contains an error, the first thing they do is look up that error. So they'll want to see what's the definition of the error and are there any other clients that are hitting that error. And so we operationalize that for them. So now the system detects that there's an error in this case description. We surface the next best action so that all of our agents can be following this best practice to search for that error code. When I hit search here, it surfaces our support search with Watson, which is powered with Watson Discovery for that contextual relevant search. So that's another example. Now we can kick it up a notch with some predictive models. So we built a predictive model that can predict when a case is going to be an NPS detractor while it's still open. And as you heard from Scott, NPS is an important measure for us. And that's a cool data science experiment, and then it's cool to put that into our dashboards as well. But now we can put it into the hands of our agents. And we can use what our best agents do when they see that a case is trending bad and have everybody do the same thing. And in this case, pick up the phone, call the customer, bring an expert along, let's turn this case around so that we can improve the support outcomes. And then a final NBA that we implemented. So many support centers really struggle with how to operationalize swarming and how to make sure that swarming is getting done early on in the life cycle of a case. So you guessed it, we built a predictive model to predict when swarming is needed and who to swarm with. And so now when a case comes in, we call that prediction model. If swarming is needed, we bring up a next best action that says, hey, you should be collaborating with some subject matter experts from other product teams. And when I click this button, it automatically creates that collaboration for me. And in our case, we use skill cases to do that. So that's NBA and what we're doing with Einstein Next Best Action and Watson. All right, let me show you some of our Einstein analytics dashboards. So I want to take you through some of the manager insights. Here you see kind of the daily stuff I might be looking at as a manager, an overview of how things are going on for my team. What are my response times? How is my team spending their time? Is it in our cases that we own or collaborating with other teams and swarming with other teams? What's my KCS engagement? And then, of course, arrivals, backlogs, closures, those kinds of things. Now, I can dive deeper on all of these things. I can take a look at the case backlog and understand it by age. I can take a look at my case backlog by severity or even by team member. So we've redacted the names here, but I can take a look at which of my team members have high case backlogs, how are they trending for case closures, and so on. I can also take a look at something we call dead time. So I can look at, are there any cases that are spending an inordinate amount of time in a particular state? So I'd want to be looking at these outliers here and diving deeper on those to understand why are they like that? Should I go and talk to my team member and get some help on this particular case? And then, of course, we've got case arrival info, total calls over by month and by severity, and also things like live agent chat. How many chats are coming in? How are we in our acceptance rate? How long are we chatting for before we are able to close the session with the customer? And then trends along those lines as well. So that's some new Watson Next Best Action stuff and some new Einstein Analytics stuff. Let's head back to the slides here. So I mentioned some of the different Watson integrations we've done, obviously chatbots, robotic process automation. Just to go through a couple more here, one of the tools that we have we call Question Assistant, which is that when a client is opening up a case, we have some natural language understanding going on that helps them create a better case description. So if you think of your password strength indicators going from red to yellow to green, we have our case descriptions doing the same thing as the correct details are entered into the case. And that's really to help us with problems where customers were opening cases and just saying, call me. I'm having a problem. Send somebody on site. This really happened. And when you get a case like that, it's hard to know what to do with it. It's hard to know who to send it to, who can actually help the customer with that case. So now with Question Assistant, we have much better case descriptions, and then we can use some skills prediction to implement our cognitive routing to get the case to the right agent and prevent bouncing around of our customers and that case. And as we combine these solutions, we're seeing a 26% reduction in time to resolution when we combine Question Assistant and cognitive routing, 11% of cases deflected through our chatbot and our automation, and up to 45 minutes per day saved per agent through our case prioritization, which is really operationalizing, again, what our agents do on a day-to-day basis with the power of Watson, and prioritizing their caseload so they don't have to be reading each case and figuring out where to get started. Instead, they have a Watson score that orders it for them. Now, those are some important internal metrics for us, of course. Externally, of course, NPS is important to us, and Scott touched on that as well, and the improvements we've seen in that. But then this year, we've also been recognized with 5 industry awards for leading in customer support, covering operational excellence and customer centricity and innovation. And with that, I'll hand it back to Scott.
Thanks, Lily. This chart is very much self-explanatory, but these are some guiding principles and lessons learned from our deployments, from our transformation. So I think if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. We're happy to drill down and share lots of information, but I think we'd like to get into Q&A.
I think we have about 5 or 6 minutes left. Anybody have a question that you'd like to ask to the team? Questions? Okay, I'm going to pass this down. Pass that back.
Hi, Charlotte Lemfus from Waters. You mentioned that you had a fairly aggressive rollout schedule bi-weekly. How did you manage training for your engineers on that?
Yeah, once we laid out our boarding plans, we set up a cadence, so some number of weeks prior to a group boarding, we started all the training materials. We made it available and got them access to our staging. They could start doing their training. We had a whole bunch of materials available. So it was very much looking ahead and saying, all right, hey, we know that at the 6-week mark, we've got to, whatever the exact number is, we've got to get those enablement materials out.
I'll add to that, Scott, just that traditionally these teams had been enabled through teach-the-teacher kind of models, but that wasn't going to scale for us. And so we have made a playbook available with video training so that everybody could take that as they onboarded. Sorry, I think I interrupted you.
No, that was really good. And one of the things we learned is not all groups are equal. As I mentioned with our IBM Z and IBM I, client set, different mentality, can't go quite as fast. Support agents, different mentality. So we did have to adjust a little bit based on the target audience.
Bob, I think you also have mentioned that you would, if you could go back in time, you would do a little bit more CM&L or change management and learning at the beginning.
Yeah, so on this chart...
Of course, you always learn after the fact, but...
Right. I mean, one of the things that I encourage everyone to do, when you're making an investment transforming in any area of service and support, make sure you invest in OCM. Change management is a critical factor. This team came to me at the beginning and made a request that was probably 3x what I approved. When I look back, they were right, I was wrong. You have to invest in the change management component because just overlaying new technologies is not going to be getting you the outcomes that you're looking for. So,
Fantastic. One more question. I think we have time for one more before they open the door. Yes? The RPA.
Sure, yeah. So we use robotic process automation for specific types of cases, for specific types of products, right? So think of license key generation or password resets, and we're able to solve those end-to-end without human interaction, right, for our clients. And then we also have RPA to help our agents as they work on certain types of cases. So if in certain teams they receive a case and they have to swivel chair to look up some information somewhere else, we automated that for them. And we use Watson to help us classify those cases and know when they're coming in so that we right away take that case, give it to Watson first, and then give it to the agent.
So Bob, if I can just add one thing that Scott touched upon earlier. As you go about transforming in any service function, a lot of times we're asked to look, any of us are asked to look at the back-end savings opportunity. And when you do that, you oftentimes compromise the client experience in the process. What Scott laid out in terms of the order of NPS, revenue, and savings, that was intentional in the way he described it. We consciously made the decision not to focus exclusively on the back end because we knew that we would compromise that client experience. So we're pretty proud of the fact that we grew NPS by the 11 points, well overachieved the $300 million of savings, and that's growing. But the other thing that I often get, and just looking around the room and knowing that some of the people in the organizations you represent, We had 19 support vice presidents that we had to convince to transform. They were all in, but how many of you have a multi-unit organization that you work in? And how many of you have those organizations say, I'm different? Okay. When they say that, remind them from the client side of the table, they're not different. The customers just want an answer to their question. They just want a problem solved. So that's one of the things that these teams have done, and all the folks in the front rows here, they have worked through all those complexities of a company the size of IBM and made it simple for the customer. And the outcomes that we're looking at right now are going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue to innovate. The one thing we won't do is we'll never stop transforming. That's the one thing that we've learned throughout this whole effort, is you have to constantly reinvent.
So thank you very much for being on stage with us today. If you've got follow-up questions, you can find me and everybody on the stage actually through the Salesforce Dreamforce app. You can, if you have questions, you want to follow up with particular questions, or you want follow-up information. There's also, if you'd like some more details around what this has been, Bob and I did a webinar, a video webinar about a year ago with Salesforce around this very subject, where he talked a lot about the executive level transformation. So if you want to email me and ask for that information, I'll send it to you. We're so happy that you came and spent time with us today. Thank you so much.